Good afternoon to everyone joining us today, and welcome to Export Development Canada's 2014 Annual Public Meeting webcast. My name is Phil Taylor. I am the spokesperson for EDC, and I'll be your moderator for the day. Alors, bon après-midi et bienvenue aux web émissions de l'Assemblée publique générale 2014 d'EDC. Je me présente, Philippe Taylor, porte-parole d'EDC, et je serai votre modérateur pendant l'Assemblée. Well, just before we begin, please note that we are webcasting today's session using simultaneous French translation. So, if you would like to listen in French, simply click on the button labeled Français that is on your screen. Pour notre auditoire francophone, nous offrons une traduction simultanée. Alors, veuillez tout simplement choisir le bouton Français qui est disponible sur votre écran. Veuillez noter par contre que les présentations seront sous-titrées aujourd'hui, tandis que le restant du webinaire sera traduit en direct. Well, our purpose today is to offer EDC stakeholders and the general public an opportunity to learn about EDC and to avail ourselves to your questions about our business activities, our business model, corporate priorities, and our guiding principles. Now, during last year's APM, we discussed how the world economy was still looking to find its feet somewhere between recession and recovery. In 2013, we began to see nascent signs of economic growth in the global economy, particularly in the U.S. during the latter part of the year. As a result, Canadian exports grew by a healthy 3.6% in 2013, suggesting that we might finally be heading in the right direction. Well, within EDC's own business results, it seems that Canadian exporters and investors are pushing ahead with their international growth plans. In order for us to tell EDC's story effectively, we've broke it down into 4 distinct parts, which are mandate, operations, finances, and then corporate social responsibility. Those perspectives will be delivered by the group joining me today, so allow me to introduce our panel. We have Warn-Schindel, EDC's new chairman of the board of directors, Benoit Daignault, our very own new president and chief executive officer, Kember, our senior vice president of finance and chief financial officer, and Signi Schneider, EDC's vice president of corporate social responsibility. So welcome everyone. Well, for our viewing audience, we want to let you know that the brief presentations by Kevin, Benoit, Ken, and Signi were pre-recorded. However, we are all here live to take your questions after these presentations, whether it is to add to or clarify the information presented or to address any areas that have not been covered. So to begin, we will listen to EDC's new chairman of the board of directors, Mr. Warn-Schindel.
Good afternoon. My name is Warn-Schindel, and I was appointed chairman of the board of directors for EDC in June 2013. I came to EDC with a long investment and banking background, having spent a number of years with OP Trust Private Markets Group, Australia's Macquarie Bank, and RBC Capital Markets. This background has given me the foundation to dive right into EDC's business, its commercial model, and partnership-preferred approach to delivering benefits to Canada. To my mind, the importance of EDC's work is a given. 1 in every 5 Canadian jobs is directly linked to exports, and trade is one of the most effective ways to drive economic growth and Canadian prosperity. As we all know, recently this growth has been hampered by a lingering period of global economic sluggishness that has also taken its toll on Canadian businesses. Despite this, and despite the geopolitical unrest that we are currently witnessing, EDC's forecast calls for an improved global outlook in the U.S. and other developed countries. If this forecast bears out, these trends should boost Canada's exports in the years ahead. But to fully reap the benefits of this potential, we need to strengthen our competitiveness. And in that mission, EDC has an important role to play. I have been particularly impressed to see firsthand what EDC does for Canadian businesses looking to grow their international footprint, a footprint we have helped them leave in more than 180 countries around the globe. EDC takes a leadership role in going further afield globally on our customers' behalf. More than 30% of EDC's business is helping Canadian companies in high-growth emerging markets. Our efforts here outpace the national exporting average by a full 20%. The benefits of these efforts are felt right here at home. Last year alone, EDC facilitated trade helped generate more than $61.9 billion of Canadian GDP. That equates to nearly 570,000 jobs, or 3.2% of national employment. Put another way, that number translates into about 4 cents out of every dollar of national income earned in Canada in 2013 coming from the business that EDC facilitated on behalf of Canadian companies. These are very meaningful numbers. The board's role in these efforts is, first, to ensure good governance, but we also challenge management to set aggressive performance targets. In 2013, we wanted to see better use of EDC's capital strength to the benefit of Canadian exporters, particularly for small and medium-sized companies. The board also focused on making sure that EDC is a player in the government's new Global Markets Action Plan, or GMAP, aligning our efforts on markets of greatest promise. GMAP also intends to increase Canadian SME presence in emerging markets to 50% by 2018, and clearly, EDC has an important role to play in building more export momentum for this sector of small and medium-sized companies. Within these numbers are approximately 5,000 Canadian SMEs that used EDC's services to help facilitate $11.6 billion of their business. 15% of SME business was in emerging markets, a very encouraging sign that Canadian SMEs are making progress and joining the ranks of Canada's exporting elite, and that we're already making progress on our GMAP objectives. Many of you may be aware that the government has introduced permanent regulations for how EDC will interact with the domestic market in March of 2014. These new laws bring to an end the broad temporary domestic mandate that EDC has been using since 2009. The revised regulations are designed to allow EDC to participate in trade-enabling domestic transactions and to help make Canadian exporting companies stronger here in Canada. We believe that the proposed regulations offer a clearly defined and appropriate role for EDC in the domestic market. These new rules place strong emphasis on the need for EDC to complement the private sector. We remain committed to our partnership-preferred philosophy in this area and will continue to maximize private sector participation in domestic trade transactions. And of course, we will continue to work with our sister crowns, like the Business Development Bank of Canada, to make sure that we fill market needs in as many areas as possible. Before closing, I'd like to thank the many people throughout the Government of Canada who have worked on behalf of Canadian exporters this past year. The Trade Commissioner Service, Embassy and Consulate staff, the Departments of International Trade, Department of Finance, amongst many others. All have had a hand in helping EDC help Canada's exporters and investors. And from the board's perspective, we have certainly benefited from an excellent working relationship with our colleagues within the greater government family. Part of that greater family now includes Stephen Poloz, EDC's former president and CEO, and now governor of the Bank of Canada. I would like to thank Steve for his 14 years of service at EDC, most notably his last 2 as our CEO. It also speaks to the caliber of executives at EDC that the board's full confidence in Pierre Gignac was also well placed, as he demonstrated true leadership in the role of EDC's acting president for a critical portion of 2013. That confidence was on display again with the appointment in February of Senior Vice President of Financing and Investments, Benoit Daignault, as EDC's new president and CEO. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the tireless executive team, leaders and employees at EDC. These 1,200 men and women are incredible agents of Canadian export growth. Their drive and energy is second to none, and I am delighted to have joined the team as chairman. Thank you very much.
Having heard from the chairman about how EDC delivered upon its mandate, we will now listen to EDC's new president and chief executive officer, our very own Benoit Daignault, who will summarize EDC's operation results from 2013.
Bonjour à tous, mon nom est Benoit Daignault, je suis président et chef de la direction d'Exportation, développement Canada. Comme j'ai été nommé chef de la direction en février dernier, c'est aussi ma première assemblée publique annuelle. Similar to Kevin, I also came to EDC with a private sector background. having spent over 20 years with different financial institutions, including 10 years at G Capital, before joining EDC in 2004. Since then, I have spent 8 years overseeing EDC's business development group, and the last 2 leading the financing and investments group. Having a decade to get to know EDC's customers in Canada and around the world has had a great impact upon me. I'm always very grateful for how they share knowledge about growing their business globally, knowledge they earn in the hard way in the trenches of international trade. That knowledge will inform my tenure as a CEO, as my focus will be on getting even closer to our customers and finding ways to make it easier for them to use our services. À cet égard, le conseil d'administration et l'équipe de la haute direction ont travaillé ensemble pour développer des approches et des stratégies pour mieux répondre aux besoins des exportateurs et des investisseurs canadiens, et ce, toujours dans un contexte assez incertain. En 2013, plus de 6 000 exportateurs et investisseurs canadiens ont eu recours aux produits et services de EDC pour faciliter des activités à l'étranger totalisant plus de 95 milliards de dollars, une hausse de 9 % comparativement à 2012. Comme l'a dit Kevin, les activités que EDC réalise au profit des exportateurs canadiens sont l'un des mécanismes qui aident le gouvernement à atteindre les objectifs commerciaux du plan d'action sur les marchés mondiaux. To that effect, we can look at 3 key initiatives where EDC can bring the greatest value to Canadian exporters and investors, as well as contribute to the government's Global Markets Action Plan. Specifically, we will help drive our customers' business in emerging markets. Second, we will evolve our product and services to make sure they are relevant to today's marketplace, particularly those most often used by small and medium-sized businesses. And third, we will create opportunities to connect Canadian companies with foreign buyers. So let's start with emerging markets. Last year, EDC facilitated more than $27 billion of Canadian exporters and investors' business in 145 emerging markets, 4% more than the previous year. That's roughly 30% of EDC's total business. The markets where we saw notable growth last year were in the Middle East, with roughly 63%, Chile 61%, Central Europe 42%, Russia 29%, and finally China with 9%. Now looking into the short-term future, we continue to see good opportunities for Canadian exporters and investors in markets like India, like Brazil, and like Mexico. In the medium term, EDC is looking at the Andean region and Southeast Asia, particularly Indonesia. And for Canadian companies with long-term interests, EDC continues to be bullish on sub-Saharan Africa with countries like South Africa, countries like Angola and Ghana, offering good opportunities in infrastructure, for example. The second area is helping more SMEs grow their exporting business by making sure that we deliver the right service in the right way at the right time. So Kevin mentioned a few key results in this area, so I'd like to cover off a few examples of how we're doing more for SMEs. J'aimerais débuter par l'expansion de notre programme de garantie d'exportation. Ce programme permet essentiellement aux PME d'obtenir des liquidités additionnelles pour couvrir les coûts relatifs à de nouveaux contrats par l'entremise d'une garantie de EDC au bénéfice de la banque de l'exportateur. Nous avons repoussé la limite de risque pour ce produit qui est passé de 75 % de couverture à 100 % de couverture. Ce type de financement répond à un besoin criant des PME qui ont besoin de fonds de roulement additionnels pour saisir les opportunités à l'exportation. The change we're making for SMEs that we are most excited about, however, is the complete transformation of our credit insurance program. This is a longer-term project, and I will have more concrete information for you in 2015. But let me tell you a little bit about it. Credit insurance is the product most used by small business, making sure they get paid and freeing up critical working capital. We are in the process of taking that product completely online so that SMEs can use it anytime from anywhere and get instant buyer credit ratings and policy approvals. Finally, I'd like to close with a summary of EDC's trade creation activities, which is how we help Canadian companies connect with foreign buyers. The foundation of these connections is the development of financial relationship with foreign corporations that can be leveraged to introduce new Canadian supply and services into their global value chains. In 2013, EDC added 30 new relationships through $4.6 billion in financing with foreign corporations. We also executed 25 matchmaking sessions last year that resulted in more than 200 introductions between foreign buyers and Canadian suppliers. Of all exporters supported by EDC's trade creation activities in 2013, 91% were SMEs. And last year alone, more than 500 Canadian companies won their first supply contract through these connections. I can think of no better way of delivering meaningful value to the customer than introducing them to their next buyer. J'aimerais abonder dans le sens de Kevin à propos des 1200 personnes travaillant à EDC. Leur détermination, leur motivation et passion sont vraiment formidables. La réussite d'EDC est leur réussite. Inutile de dire que je suis très fier de diriger ces gens d'un talent extraordinaire. And finally, to all of our customers, thank you for your business. It has been a privilege to be a partner in your trade success, and we look forward to helping you grow your business in 2014. Merci infiniment. Thank you.
Having heard from Benoit, we will now turn it over to Ken Kember, EDC's Chief Financial Officer, who will provide a fulsome overview of EDC's financial performance over the past year.
Bonjour, j'aimerais prendre quelques minutes pour vous présenter certains des faits saillants de nos résultats financiers pour l'année 2013 et aussi de vous parler de nos prévisions pour 2014 et pour après. Let me start with a short historical recap of the last 70 years. EDC was established in 1944 with $1 million of capital from our shareholder, the Canadian government. Since then, the government has put a total of $1.3 billion of capital into EDC. EDC has grown that $1.3 billion to over $11 billion, including the dividend declared a couple of months ago in February. EDC will have paid dividends totaling $4.1 billion back to the government, effectively returning the government's capital 3 times over and retaining over $7 billion on our own balance sheet. But more importantly, over the same period, EDC has supported $1.2 trillion in exports and investments, helping Canadian companies do more business in more markets around the world. 2013 continued that track record of delivering strong financial results. Our balance sheet grew from $36 billion in 2012 to $42 billion at the end of 2013. This was the direct result of record new loan signings and disbursements during the year. $18 billion in new loan signings and $14 billion in new loan disbursements, mainly in the areas of telecom and media, oil and gas, and automotive sectors. This led to net financing and investment income of $1.2 billion, a 15% increase over 2012. Nos programmes d'assurance, qui ont une incidence moins grande sur notre bilan, sont toutefois très importants pour les exportateurs, particulièrement les petites et moyennes entreprises. En 2013, nous avons couvert les activités de nos clients à hauteur de 77 milliards de dollars au moyen de nos 4 programmes d'assurance, soit l'assurance crédit, l'assurance d'institutions financières, l'assurance et cautionnement de contrats et l'assurance risque politique. Ces programmes ont généré 193 millions de dollars commission, direction fait des frais de l'assurance. Nous avons aussi reçu en 2013 des commissions de garantie de prêts totalisant 36 millions de dollars. Nos garanties de prêts sont un bon exemple de l'appui offert aux entreprises par EDC en collaboration avec les banques canadiennes. Par exemple, dans le cadre de notre programme de garantie de l'exportation, nous répartissions le risque avec les banques pour que des petites et moyennes entreprises puissent percer de nouveaux marchés, acheter de l'équipement, accepter de nouvelles commandes ou effectuer un investissement à l'étranger. On the expense side, we had administrative expenses of $310 million. We control our expenses by carefully managing our productivity ratio, which indicates how much of our net revenue we spend on administrative expenses. We aim for a productivity ratio of 25% or less. For 2013, we had a productivity ratio of 22.7. The better result was a consequence of running with a lower than expected staff complement during the year and lower depreciation expense. We expect the 2014 productivity ratio to be closer to the 25% level, as our staff levels have returned to full complement, and we also commit more resources to increasing awareness among small and medium-sized businesses on how EDC can help them grow their business internationally. The final areas of our income statement are provisions for credit losses and claims-related expenses. For credit losses, in 2012, we needed fewer provisions because we implemented new probability of default and loss given default assumptions. So we reduced our loan provisions by $340 million. In 2013, we set aside $30 million of provisions based on changes in the credit quality of our current loan portfolio. Selon les conditions relatives au crédit et les changements dans notre portefeuille de prêts, la dotation à la provision se situait normalement dans une fourchette allant de 0 à 200 millions de dollars. Quant aux charges liées au sinistre, elles se sont chiffrées à 159 millions de dollars contre 38 millions de dollars en recouvrement en 2012. Ce résultat, principalement attribué à la réduction de la valeur recouvrable d'une indemnité importante liée à une assurance risque politique versée une autre année. So the bottom line for 2013, $817 million of net income, a relatively normal year for us in terms of what we'd expect. Over the last 10 years, our net income has ranged from a low of $206 million in 2008 to a high of $1.475 billion in 2010. This volatility mainly comes from our loan provision and claims-related expense lines. We take on large exposures in risky markets on behalf of Canadian exporters, and so changes in those exposures can have a big impact in our income statement, both positively and negatively. La bonne nouvelle, c'est que notre bilan nous permet de faire face à cette volatilité. Avec plus de 10 milliards de dollars en capital social, en résultat non distribués et en provision, nous avons des assises financières solides. Nous pouvons donc affronter cette volatilité tout en générant une remise pour accroître notre capital et verser des dividendes à notre actionnaire. For 2014, as is outlined in our corporate plan, we're forecasting a net income in the same range at $781 million. We also expect our capital expenditures to grow to $36 million from $27 million in 2013 as we make significant investments to modernize legacy IT systems with a focus on credit insurance in 2014 and 15. And we anticipate our capital position to remain at the AAA solvency level as we prudently manage our risks and grow our supply of capital through operating income. All of this adds up to continuing our long-standing trend of financial sustainability and resiliency so that we can help more Canadian companies access more international markets in the years ahead. Thank you.
You ready? Yeah. Oh. Our final presentation will be from Signi Schneider, EDC's Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility. CSR is an operating principle here at EDC, and it is part of our business model. Each year, we strengthen our practices in this area, and Signi's presentation will inform us about EDC's CSR activities in 2013.
Hello, I'm Signi Schneider, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility at EDC, and I will be speaking about our efforts in corporate social responsibility this year. Comme vous le savez peut-être, le rôle de DC est d'aider les exportateurs canadiens à réussir dans le domaine du commerce international et à les appuyer dans la quête de nouveaux débouchés commerciaux. Ainsi, nous nous retrouvons souvent dans des marchés et des secteurs pouvant poser des défis éventuels sur le plan de la RSE. Ces défis incluent les actes de corruption ou des impacts environnementaux et sociaux potentiellement négatifs dans les transactions qu'on appuie. Cela étant dit, nous sommes une société d'État représentant le gouvernement du Canada. Nous devons absolument nous assurer que nous soutenons des activités menées de manière responsable. C'est ce que la publique attend de nous et ce que nous attendons de nous-mêmes. In the global banking industry, we know that financial and insurance products can often outpace the development of international standards. As a result, the role of CSR within these new developments is not always clear right away. I'll give you an example. Loans that directly finance an investment project, such as large infrastructure projects, are generally benchmarked against very specific international standards. The OECD Common Approaches for Export Credit Agencies and the Equator Principles for certain financial institutions are two of the more well-known sets of standards. In these cases, it is very clear what's required from us when we conduct an environmental and social review. However, other services that we provide, like accounts receivable insurance and corporate loans, don't have similar international benchmarking standards. It is precisely because of these types of grayer areas that we undertook an initiative last year to help us clarify our own values and risk thresholds. Internally, this initiative gave us more discipline for when we evaluate the potential CSR risks of transactions for these types of financial products. It also makes it much easier and predictable for our customers because they know what to expect when they come to us. These are all part of our ongoing refinements to bring greater value to our shareholder, civil society, and our customers. Nous nous sommes aussi efforcés de participer aux conversations qui portent sur les pratiques exemplaires à l'échelle internationale. Nous avons collaboré avec nos homologues à l'OCDE, ainsi qu'avec les institutions financières adhérant au principe de l'Équateur. Deux exemples viennent à l'esprit. Cette année, nous avons contribué au travail des organismes de crédit à l'exportation de l'OCDE et des institutions financières adhérant au principe de l'Équateur portant sur les droits de la personne. Nous avons aussi participé dans les discussions de révision au sein des principes de l'Équateur. Ces mises à jour comportent des nouvelles références aux droits de la personne ainsi qu'aux principes directeurs des Nations Unies. En participant dans ces discussions, nous tâtons de marquer le pas avec les changements dans le domaine des examens environnementaux et sociaux qui ne cessent d'évoluer. Cela nous permet aussi d'effectuer une analyse comparative de nos propres pratiques afin de nous assurer d'être sur la bonne piste. I should also mention that we made some good strides in our efforts to support companies within Canada's clean technologies industry, which is a priority sector for EDC. We made this sector a priority because we see both the massive opportunities and the important environmental benefits. With some of the world's best cutting-edge technologies, these Canadian customers are helping to reduce the negative environmental impacts in many industries. they're also helping their own companies be more efficient, productive, and profitable. We recognized that these Canadian entrepreneurs have challenges moving past the development phase. Many aren't mature enough for bank financing or commercial bonding and insurance. So we've made it a priority to stretch our own risk appetite in order to help some of these clean tech companies grow beyond the domestic market. In fact, last year we helped more than 20 of these businesses that were in a critical phase of their growth story. We also just recently launched our first green bond, a $300 million 3-year global offering to support financing for environmental-related business. Our current portfolio of green assets includes loans made to companies that remove pollution or contaminants from air, soil, and water, or help alleviate some of the effects of climate change. Pour nous, ceci a été une occasion idéale de répondre aux besoins de nos investisseurs et de renforcer l'engagement envers l'industrie canadienne de technologie propre. L'année 2013 a été très chargée. Nous sommes fiers de nos réalisations, mais reconnaissons qu'il reste beaucoup de travail à faire. Our efforts throughout the year will be provided in much more detail in our annual CSR report, which will be released on our website at the end of May. We hope you take a look at the report, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you. Merci.
Having concluded all of our presentations, we will now begin to take questions from you, our audience, on all of the topics covered here today. Now again, this is a live question and answer session, providing you with a direct access to EDC's leadership. So to submit a question, simply click on the question button on your screen and we will respond to them in the order that they are received. In the event that we are unable to answer your questions today because of the time limitation or that the specificity of your question could not be fully answered here, I will personally be answering you by email within the next few days. Alors, pour notre auditoire francophone, vous pouvez à tout moment poser une question en cliquant sur le bouton « Question » qui s'affiche à l'écran de l'interface du webinaire. And with that, we'll go on to the first question.
Alors, on va passer à la première question. Benoît, on avait une question dans votre présentation. Vous aviez mentionné qu'il y avait des règlements canadiens du gouvernement pour le commerce. Ça ne veut pas dire que EDC peut garantir les comptes à percevoir. Alors, on parle ici de vente. Assurer un compte à percevoir pour le commerce, non, on ne peut pas faire ça. On pouvait avant, mais maintenant, on ne peut plus. Auparavant, on pouvait assurer et pour le risque international et le risque national. Maintenant, on ne peut pas le faire de façon directe. Cependant, nous avons toujours conclu une entente avec le secteur privé où il y a des politiques mondiales, où une compagnie qui a besoin de couverture et nationale et internationale, nous pouvons toujours offrir avec le secteur privé une assurance. Mais nous-mêmes, à titre de notre mandat, du point de vue national, non, on ne peut plus offrir ça. D'accord, merci. Prochaine question. Benoît, on va retourner à vous. D'accord. Alors, ça, c'est un de nos clients qui pose la question. Cuba, qu'est-ce qu'on peut aider les gens à faire là, à accomplir? Eh bien, on a été actifs là à Cuba depuis bon nombre d'années. Cependant, ça nous a donné beaucoup de défis à relever. On travaille avec les banques dans le secteur privé pour être capable d'offrir du soutien au commerce, surtout aux groupes gouvernementaux. Nous avons certaines limites qui s'imposent en ce qui a trait soutien à long terme, comme le financement, ce genre de choses-là. Alors, quand on parle de Cuba, nous, on fait ça au cas le cas, quand on étudie ça. Alors, ma suggestion ici, parce qu'on est limité là, je vous suggère à vous, le client, de communiquer directement avec le gestionnaire des comptes ici à EDC et voir quels sont les détails des besoins et ensuite on pourra élucider ce que EDC peut faire et ne peut pas faire. Alors, Ken, on a une question pour vous. On sait que le DC peut s'occuper de sa propre viabilité, mais on veut aussi accomplir des profits, n'est-ce pas? Alors, parlez-nous des profits. Et oui, EDC, oui, nous pouvons accomplir des bénéfices. Alors, si vous regardez les lignes commerciales avec lesquelles on compose, bien ça, on parlerait de nos programmes de prêts de garantie. Pour les prêts, on impute des intérêts et on a des partenariats aussi avec des partenaires. Nous avons des revenus, des frais et pour les compagnies, les programmes d'assurance, oui, il y a des frais à être imputés pour... Là, c'est un programme qui va protéger la personne au Canada qui veut offrir un service à l'échelle mondiale pour le protéger ou la protéger. Alors, les intérêts sont là et les intérêts nous représentent les bénéfices. Alors, une question intéressante ici, tout le monde pourrait se mettre de la mêlée. Alors, gérer l'électricité, si vous voulez. Est-ce que ça fait partie de la technologie propre? Peut-être qu'on va commencer avec vous, Benoît. Eh bien, la réponse, c'est oui. Oui, c'est le cas. En fait, nous avons une initiative assez élargie du côté de la technologie propre. Quand on regarde de ce côté-là, on voit qu'il y a un besoin de surtout les cautionnements et soutien à courte échéance pour aider les compagnies à décrocher des contrats à l'échelle mondiale. Alors, si vous faites une soumission pour un contrat, disons que c'est relié à gestion de l'énergie ou épargner du côté de l'énergie, souvent vous devez proposer un cautionnement pour prouver que vous êtes engagé. Dans les derniers 12 à 18 mois, on a vu beaucoup d'activités de ce côté-là. Alors, on se penche de ce côté-là. Alors, Signi, peut-être, je vais ajouter qu'on a toute une gamme de vidéos sur notre site web. Ces vidéos-là nous montrent les compagnies avec lesquelles on a travaillé dans ce domaine-là. Alors, si ça vous intéresse, allez voir à notre site web. Alors, Ken, peut-être que ça s'adresse à vous. Comment une compagnie se qualifie-t-elle pour l'assurance des comptes, par exemple, les comptes à percevoir, les créances? Est-ce que c'est la même chose pour les banques dans un secteur privé? Oui, ça s'apparente de près. Nous travaillons du côté commercial. Alors, nous voulons nous assurer que les pratiques que nous utilisons au sein des compagnies avec lesquelles nous allons travailler sont en ligne avec les nôtres. Nous voulons aussi voir que selon la pratique quotidienne dans cette compagnie-là, que ça s'agence bien avec ce que nous croyons, quelles sont nos politiques, nos idées. Une question à savoir, avec l'Irak, est-ce qu'on est ouvert à faire les affaires avec eux? Je pense que nous sommes restreints, n'est-ce pas? Oui, c'est le cas, nous sommes restreints. Mais en fait, c'est un marché très difficile, comme vous le savez, à ce point-ci. Nous travaillons avec des restrictions, avec ce qu'on peut faire. C'est au cas le cas. C'est très difficile de vous donner une réponse générale. Alors, une autre question pour vous, Benoît.
L'an dernier, l'Inde était la destination de l'avenir. Cette année, vous avez pu parler de l'Indonésie et l'Afrique subsaharienne pour l'infrastructure notamment. Est-ce un léger changement de cap?
La réponse, c'est non. En fait, c'est assez intéressant de voir où se trouvent les opportunités pour les exportateurs. Mais la réalité, c'est que les opportunités sont souvent spécifiques à un secteur particulier. Alors, pour nous, l'Inde est toujours une destination importante. Et on continue de croire qu'à long terme, il y a un potentiel énorme. Ceci étant dit, le potentiel pour nous en Inde est vraiment basé au niveau des infrastructures. Alors, comme vous savez, c'est quelque chose qui est à très long terme. Donc, ceci étant dit, ce n'est pas toutes les compagnies qui sont au niveau de l'infrastructure. Alors, il y a d'autres secteurs. Et dépendamment de votre secteur, les opportunités d'affaires qui vont se présenter vont être dans des endroits différents à travers le monde. Donc, nous, ce qu'on fait évidemment, c'est qu'on tente de couvrir les marchés où les compagnies canadiennes ont un intérêt particulier. Et dans certains cas, on voit un changement de conditions qui fait que dans certains marchés, il va y avoir une croissance additionnelle qui va se réaliser. Et on essaie d'être proactif dans ces marchés-là en particulier, soit parce que les compagnies canadiennes sont déjà présentes ou parce qu'on s'attend à ce que les compagnies canadiennes démontrent un intérêt assez marqué dans le prochain 12 à 36 mois.
Merci, Benoit. I believe that is all the questions that we have for now. So I think with that reply, we have no more questions. We will conclude our webcast for today without some time left, but we'll still move to close here. Again, if any question happens to pop up after our time, I will personally respond to that question for you. So if you miss the time frame, no problem. We will get to your question. Thank you for participating in EDC's annual public meeting webcast today and for sharing your questions and your suggestions. Alors à tous ceux qui ont assisté à notre web émission, nous vous souhaitons une excellente journée de nombreuses réussites dans vos activités sur les marchés mondiaux. On behalf of the chair, the executive, and everyone here at EDC, we wish you a great success in all of your international business efforts, and we remind you that EDC is always here to help. Thank you, and have a great day.